Welcome to Breakout Investors. Today we're speaking with the management of Ultralife Corporation, ticker ULBI, specifically Mike Manna and Phil Fain, the CEO and CFO. This call is being recorded on the 8th of July and will be distributed via the Breakout Investor channel on YouTube and via our Substack community. Supporting materials for today's discussion will be posted on the Breakout Investors Collaboration app available on the app stores and at breakoutinvestors.com. The application and much of the research content is free. So let's get started with me handing over the call for a short presentation followed by question and answers.
All right. Well, first of all, let me just start out by saying Mike Manna has seen just about everything that's ever happened in this company. Mike, and he could fill in the details, came in as an intern 30 plus years ago, and he's touched all pieces of the company. And he may not tell you this, but I'll tell you this just from the experience I've had of being right next door to Mike, is that he's one of the handful of people that thoroughly understands all aspects of the lithium industry. And we're not talking somebody that's had 5 years or 10 years. We're talking about somebody that's had their hands dirty in every piece of it for literally for the last 30 years, ranging from the engineering side to the chemistry side to the sales side to the operations side to the market, the entire market and the demand and all that. I've been with the company for just over 15 years, and we have put together a team through our acquisitions in the last 7 or 8 years that I think is unparalleled from an engineering and technology standpoint. When you look back at why we did our acquisitions on the battery side, is this company that started in 1991. It was our date of incorporation, 12/14/1990, a spin-off from the laboratories of Kodak, Eastman Kodak, primarily served the military. And when some of us realized after a couple decades that military has its peaks and valleys, and it's very difficult to show consistencies and sustained growth and all that, we realized that we really had to branch out into the commercial side of the market with the opportunity that we had. And that opportunity is that we are just a key supplier for the military. Our batteries are very well received. We are the sole supplier for 5390s. There were others in the game that couldn't meet the qualifications. So we had a handful of great customers on the military side. We had products that were that we built, primary batteries that we built, and Mike could take you through our strategy with the rechargeables and the history with rechargeable batteries. But we realized that we needed to make ourselves put ourselves in the same position on the commercial side. It's real easy to say, well, in 3 to 4 years we're going to penetrate medical, or we're going to penetrate industrial and all that. So we did an acquisition strategy that literally started with our purchase of Accutronics in 2016. Accutronics, located in the UK. What we loved about Accutronics is they had tremendous relationships with some of the world's largest medical device OEMs. And during a period where there was consolidation on the medical side, they were looking for suppliers that had a better balance sheet, more capital. So it was the ideal time for us and Accutronics to get together. And that really, really helped not only initiate, but expedite our entry into medical and healthcare, which now makes up 25% of our total sales. The same is true on the industrial side with our purchase of a company called Southwest Electronics Energy Corporation, excuse me, in 2019. We call it SWE, located in Houston. That company was started 52 years ago by a gentleman who, the day he graduated college, got into the business, ran it for 52 years very successfully, in oil and gas and other below the sea and other industrial applications where the cost simply is very similar to military, very similar to medical, where the cost of failure is exorbitant. In medical, it's lives. In military, it's lives. In oil and gas, it's dollars. The cost of going 2 miles down, maybe 2 miles across. And he built up just a stellar team. And it was an ideal acquisition. And we were honored that he would consider us, because replacing yourself after 52 years, looking for a soft landing for your people, and your legacy isn't what you've done, in his mind, wasn't what he did in the first 52 years or what was going to happen after that. And then 2 years later, we bought his fishing buddies up north, and between the Excel group, in between the two of them, they control a large part of the market. SWE, their customer base are the large blue chip oil and gas companies. Excel are the smaller players, and I think it's worked out tremendous for us, because the expertise just isn't in oil and gas. The expertise is in various other industrial applications that we weren't penetrating. Mining, batteries, small format batteries for computers in the roughest of situations. And between the two, the engineering that we got between Excel and SWE, Accutronics, with the tribal knowledge that we have here, that Mike knows better than anybody, and in our friends in Virginia Beach that we can talk about, our communication systems business, we have decades and decades of experience understanding what works, what doesn't, how you get into customers. And the first couple of years after the acquisition, we acted like a company with global locations under Mike's leadership that started in November of 2022. We have made the transition, or we're just finishing the transition of finally starting to act like a true global company, using the power of our resources and recognizing the synergies and the opportunities. For example, our medical cart batteries idea came from our sales team here in Newark. It was designed and developed by our folks in our engineering team in the UK at Accutronics, and is being sold by our SWE team in Houston. And using all available resources, using the strategic relationships that our joint venture in China has. I can go on and on and on, but right now, I think we have transitioned our company from literally 90% military to, I'll call it 65-35, 60-40, 70-30, where commercial markets that provide some pretty solid margins. And the cost of bringing in a new supplier that we now have behind us on the medical side and on oil and gas side could be 5 to 10 years of testing. So we've gotten over that, and so all we have to do is keep delivering quality products, understand what their demand is going forward, understanding the technology plays of how we can keep advancing. And I think it's very exciting for us. And Mike had the foresight to look at what is the next generation, what are truly the transformative projects. And myself being a CFO, we could have said, we're going to show better EPS, we're not going to spend as much. And our position was literally, screw that. We need to be out there with leading products, our transformational projects that we're just finalizing and launching right now. And that really is the future of the business, on top of a very strong demand for the base business. And with that blurb, I'll turn it over to the true expert here, which is on the business side, is Mike.
Well, you summed it up pretty well, Phil. So I don't know if I have to add a ton, but I'll just inject a little bit. I mean, when I first started here at Ultralife in the beginning, we were doing lithium polymer. I mean, we were the first company to really bring lithium polymer to market. Went through that scale up launch. We're selling millions of batteries or cells per year to some of the bigger OEMs in the cell phone business. And unfortunately, by about the year 2002, I mean, I could import finished cells for less than I could actually get the materials here in the United States. And for the most part, that's still really a big part of one of the biggest problems with actually doing domestic cell manufacturing here in the US. We don't really have the raw materials established in the volumes that it's cost effective here. So we went through that whole transition. We really went back to, where's our bread and butter? Where did Kodak, specialize? What were our good markets? What do we want to be when we grow up? And when it really came all down to it back then, it was, we need to be in the high reliability, abuse tolerant, life dependent applications where people are going to pay and depend on you to deliver high quality products time and time again. And that's really where we focused. And, ultimately that's still where we are today. We're not trying to be, the next big EV battery company where margins are going to erode to nothing. And right now that whole market's kind of falling apart, at least in the short term here. That's not what we're trying to chase. We're trying to chase bread and butter opportunities where we can make reasonable margins and have really sticky relationships with our customers. And, there's a cost of having a customer and a supplier relationship. And, a lot of our suppliers, they're trying to get some of the cost out of their supply chains. They don't want to go and visit 20 battery manufacturers and audit them every year. They want to get some of their wallet share combined down into, the select few. And we're trying to be that to our customers wherever we can. And, by some of the acquisitions we've done, it's really helped us establish a global footprint where, we have a pretty good engineering team worldwide now where we can support customers on location or at least near location pretty much globally. And, that's a big deal. They want local support. They want local content. They want to be able to pick up the phone in their time zone and actually talk to a supplier. So that's where we're kind of focused. I think Phil kind of summed up where we're at market wise and, what we're focused on. I mean, I've been saying on the conference calls, our number one priority is really gross margin improvement and really driving, some of the initiatives behind the scenes. And I think we've got a positive indication there that, some of the things we've been working on over the last year and a half are actually starting to take hold and drive some results. There's still a lot of heavy lifting to do, but feel very comfortable where we're at and where we're going. I think, everyone in our team is very aligned. Everyone has the super objectives, we all have a 1-page. This is what we're doing as a company, sitting on everyone's desk in the entire company worldwide. So everyone's aligned with where we're going, where we want to be, and what we want to do. And I think that's a big part of getting the culture and getting everyone kind of marching forward, as one. And I think we're doing, what we need to do there. And with that, I'll hand it back.
Well, thank you very much, both Phil and Mike. A lot of things stuck out to me. I just briefly mentioned that I think Chris, who's on the call, first introduced me to this company, and he's been following you guys a long time, so he may have, he can talk a little bit about that himself. But he started essentially saying, look, this is a company really at a sort of a pivot point. For a long time, you've been kind of building out diversification so that you can you have a foundation that can, I suppose, weather different storms in the economy. When military goes down, you have those other branches to call on. But I guess in the last since you've been the CEO, I guess that's a year and a half now. It's really been a story of expanding margins, continued decent, growth at a decent clip, and with that cash, you're deleveraging, and that's one thing that you said, Phil, is that you're kind of product focused, customer focused, and I think that's brilliant. But despite that, you're still you're still like the numbers are coming and they're following because you've got the right approach, I think. So that was really interesting to hear. Um, I'll just I'll hand it over to the audience. I have questions, but I'll just wait and see. Anyone else, any thoughts, any questions? Go ahead.
Yeah, hi, Mike and Phil. I've been following the company for at least 10 years and been a shareholder for much of it. I have what for me is a fairly significant position, so I always pay attention. And I've never been more excited than I am right now. I know we're going to get into a lot of details as the call progresses, so I thought I would maybe start the discussion, but trying to get your impressions about how the world is changing and how that affects Ultralife. Obviously, the world is becoming more portable. The world is more in need of batteries and reliable batteries for critical situations, communication, medical, defense, and now AI. Can you talk to us about kind of the market, how the market landscape has changed since you've been with the company, and how these many tailwinds must make you sleep better at night, I would imagine, than it did 5 or 10 years ago?
Yeah, I mean, one of the reasons I'm still here is one of the PhDs I was working with on the polymer program back in the day when I was an intern. He said, you should stick around because these batteries are going to rule the world. Everyone's going to need batteries for everything. It's coming. And, he was absolutely right. You fast forward 30 years and everyone has a cell phone, everyone has a tablet, or a lot of people have tablets. Everyone's using wireless devices, Bluetooth everywhere. Obviously, batteries are a huge enabler to all of that, and they continue to be a huge enabler to that. And with that, we become more and more reliant on batteries in everything we're doing. Everything from the smallest device in your ear all the way up to the EV sector and some of the bigger stationary power things and other things that are going on with backup power and grid regulation and everything else that they're doing with some of these larger systems. Batteries are a huge piece of that, and they're going to continue to be a very large piece of that. The good thing for a company like Ultralife, and we're still the little giant that roared. I mean, we are a very small company in some of the landscape. We don't make rechargeable cells currently. We dabble in some chemistry stuff, and we do have some activity going on with some partners here in Newark, but we're not making rechargeables in production right now. Don't know that we will, but you just don't know what the future holds there. But we also have very strong relationships with the bigger OEMs that make millions and millions of cells per day. And, in a lot of cases, they have their costs liquidated, and it's very hard to see how you can compete against the Panasonics and the Samsungs of the world and the CATLs, and, I can go on with just the volumes per shift that they're putting out. It is an enormous amount of cells. I mean, you're looking at rail car versus of materials per hour going through some of these facilities, which I think even here in the U.S., you don't really think about how much material is required to run through a battery plant to produce some of these larger volumes of cells. It's an enormous amount of materials. So for us, I mean, we're kind of still a really niche player. We're kind of, I hate to say it, an afterthought in a lot of cases, but to our customers, we're super important and we're super valuable. And what we bring to them is we have a lot of good battery knowledge. We have a lot of strong engineering. On the communication side, we have a group of guys that worked with a lot of soft projects, special operations forces. They come from that community. They have really, really strong relationships. And that's really enabled us to get into some of these other opportunities on their business as well that, we're really excited about long term. So in both of our businesses, we have really good relationships and a really good technical team that are really setting, what I would call the foothold in the business and really helping us, establish that baseline that we can hopefully springboard from and really become, a much larger company through organic growth, but also further acquisitions at some point. and things like that. Hopefully that answered it.
Yeah, and if you're a multi-year story, which I believe you are, is there something in the next year or so, a contract you're hoping to land, or penetrate a certain area? What's going to make you guys high five each other there in the office? What's going to make shareholders stand up and cheer here?
Well, and I'll go and then I'll let Phil have his take on this as well, because this is a very good question. I mean,
Good question.
and it's in our, one of the pages in our latest investor deck is really the transformational projects list. And, we put a lot of time, money, and effort into a handful of projects in both businesses that we think are going to be the footholds for the next, phase of growth for the company. But a lot of these projects just take a lot longer than you would expect. You start it, you get it done, then you got to get into a customer qualification. And at least on like one that's, top of mind is the thin cell opportunities coming out of, medical and in the wearable patch projects. Some of the customers working with there, you're talking about replacing, $200,000-$300,000 of equipment in every hospital room with a patch you're wearing. I mean, you start looking at the CapEx savings at a hospital at that, even if it's not, doing every possible thing, and all the wires that are not connected to you that, they just throw out after you get done as a patient because they're not going to clean them at this point. The risk is too high. That's a huge opportunity, but, we're also kind of hostage to our customers' successes. And, they go on FDA trials and, something gets found, they need to go back and correct in software, or they got to correct something in hardware. And then the trial starts back over again. And it just is, it's a frustrating cycle, but you're also very sticky so that when it does hit, hopefully it'll hit in a big way and, it'll be a really good story for everyone. Same thing with some of the other things that we're working, the thionyl chloride cells may not quite be as sexy is the thin cells, but it's a very niche market, not a lot of players in it. And you again need really high reliability, really long life cells. And that's something that we strive to do. And I'll let Phil take his comments on that as well.
Yeah, I'll just look at the financials. The high fives for me certainly are reducing the debt. We know that the $25 million of debt we reported is 12 cents of EPS. A significant reduction goes right to EPS, right to the stock price. So very, very excited about that. And now with TTM EBITDA of $19 million, finally getting to a point where it's 11-12% and certainly headed in the right direction, is all about free cash flow. So we're feeling very, very good about that. The other thing is gross margin, and every 100 basis point improvement in gross margin is worth to us a lot of EPS. If you look at us, $160 million in sales, 1% of that is $1.6 million. And we can cut that every which way, but at the end of the day, it's still 7 or 8 cents. So very, very excited about that. The high fives, and those are things that we're working on day in and day out, bringing in the lean expert, bringing in just people that instead of like in the older days, trying to find who had experience with strategic buying or who may have known the vendors that could be in a buyer's role. We're bringing in people. The last 7 or 8 hires, 5 or 6 hires that we did to lead certain areas are people who have been doing this for decades, similar to our engineering talent, and it's intuition to them. It's not like they're learning the industry, but they're learning, but it's the intuition of doing the right thing in saving time, because none of us are getting any younger here. And the high fives are getting the contracts, as Mike mentioned, for the transformational new products. One that doesn't get too much play because people really don't understand it is probably the most simplest product that took only 2.5 years to pass qualification. And that's the EL 8000 cases that are used by, and this is public information. That's all you have to do is, you'll see it on Hewlett Packard Enterprise's website. We're their strategic partner. We're the partner that builds the cases for their servers, and supporting edge computing. Everybody and everything. Everybody wants the server either on them or right over there or next door or something like that. And to protect them, you'd think it would be a pretty simple task, but talk about bringing in relationships within special forces. They know who to call, and we knew what to do to respond. And you look at HPE and you look at their customers. Their customers are what do we call them? We call them hyperscalers. They're the big guys leading the S&P 500. So we're very excited about that. That's a huge opportunity. And in addition to what's in the transformational new products in battery and energy products. And now I think we're on to our next wave. And the last thing I'll mention is, we're not a plug and play battery. We're not just buy it off the shelf. And what we've evolved to is getting very much involved. Once you're deep into a relationship with a medical customer, what are their next products? Sitting at the table, at initial design meeting, going all the way through the FDA certification process and all that. That's a sign of a true partnership. And our ability to look forward and to take our standard process to understanding S&OP, instead of 3 months, instead of 6 months, instead of 12, it's extending 18 months, going further and further and further. And once you get past that timeline, you start getting into the future needs of what's the customer's transformational projects look like. So it's those customer relationships, and that's the tip of the spear, is those customer relationships and delivering quality products and helping them solve their problems, not being their problem.
Yeah, I think there's an old saying in medical and defense that once you're in, you're in. And I think that's kind of what you're talking about. And that's very exciting to hear that.
Yeah.
You've got your foot in the door, and they're going to keep coming back to you for more and more, and at a quicker pace because of the approvals and their trust with you. So I think that's fantastic.
And we came to them, we got into some of these big medical customers during their greatest time of need, batteries for ventilators, respirators, infusion pumps. And we absolutely delivered without a problem. Now, why us? Because their suppliers, the quality of the products in all cases weren't there, resulting in recalls and sending out new products and having those products recalled, and the OEM saying, all right, enough, who else we got here? And fitting that bill and stepping up with excellent quality products and the relationships.
Great. Maybe one last thing for me is, I was real happy to see that you've been working hard on your supply chain issues. Can you just talk real brief about how critical that is? Because I've seen over and over small companies especially get tripped up by supply chain issues, and it seems like you've made that a priority. So if you could touch on that real quick.
Well, supply chain is key to everything we do. And, we had a rough spot with gross margin about 2.5 years ago, where, we were expediting a lot of parts. We did not have a good S&OP process in place. And then coming out of it with some of the COVID shortfalls in material supply, we were expediting, a lot of materials all over the world to make our customers whole, and ultimately their patients and their products whole for delivery. And it was a big cost to the business. On the flip side of that, now that we're actually running our S&OP process and we're out those 12 to 18 months like Phil is talking about, I mean, we're way ahead of almost every part. Most parts now are within a 52-week lead time, thankfully, at this point. And a lot of them are back to almost pre-COVID lead times. There's still some that are out over a year, but for the most part, those are very small quantities. But that keeps us within normal lead times. We're not paying expediting fees. We're in the normal supply chain, and it shows right up in the gross margin. I mean, ultimately. The other thing was, we had a lot of inefficiencies in our supply chain, and a lot of things that were just what I would call busy work. We had, some inexperienced buyers that they were doing their best to bring product in that we needed, and they absolutely did that, but they weren't necessarily doing it in an economical batch quantity. We had some products coming in every week, which is great, except it was like a $500 item that we were inspecting every single week. We could bring it in once a quarter and it's $3,000. You inspect it once and you're done. Move on to the big things and really prioritize, trying to save money on the precious few and not some of the ankle biters that are, just material that you need to keep the shop going. And the other half of that was just make sure you have all the parts you need. We had a big effort going to just really investigate all of our bill of materials, really go through them one by one, especially on all of our large customers, and really make sure that we had the adequate footages and different things with tapes, epoxies, things that, you do have some spillage during the process, which when you're only making a few isn't a big problem. When you're making a lot, you can get, really tripped up very quickly if your bills and materials aren't really, really accurate, and some of your safety stocks aren't in place. So really they went through front to back through the supply chain from bills and materials all the way to, really getting invested more in our supply chain suppliers. So we're actually down a couple levels now in multiple cases to really understand that everyone understands what our needs are for the next 18 months. So there's no communication issues with a supplier three suppliers down from us, where someone isn't talking to somebody. And I think that's been an enormous help. And like Phil said, we brought in some experts that really, they just know what they're doing. Let's just say that they've done the reps. They know that they understand the processes. They know to go to the table and renegotiate contracts. They know where the hidden costs are. Logistics, even on the logistics side, there's a huge amount of savings you can have in logistics, just managing inventory flow properly and in the right quantities at the right time for both us and our suppliers. And, that's a cost benefit across the board to not only us, but, our suppliers and even their suppliers in some cases. So it's really been a wholehearted effort. That whole supply chain is, like you said, it's a lot more complex than you would think, and it could definitely trip you up if you're not on top of it.
Great.
The advantage of being more in control of the supply chain is that you can level load production, simply meaning weeks 1 and 2 of a quarter are as important as weeks 12 and 13 of a quarter. Get rid of the hockey stick effect and level load so that there's efficiencies throughout instead of that last home stretch surge.
Great. Thank you.
Anyone else have some questions? I'll go ahead then, but feel free to put your hand up or ask anyone else if they come up. Yeah, one question I had was, clearly you've established yourself in a niche, or I'd say like a variety of niches in different markets. I was wondering if you could speak a little bit about how the competitive landscape looks like. You've mentioned some of the bigger players, but as far as I understand it, they're targeting different products, for different problems. Could you talk a little bit about, whom for several of your maybe key products, what does the competition look like? Are you playing against some of the bigger boys, or are you playing against some other small kind of niche companies? How does it look?
Well, it varies based on which part of the market you're actually in. I mean, I'll start with our communications business because that's kind of the smaller piece. I mean, they're very specific amplifiers that pair with, specialty radios in the military and a lot of products around the radio. So in a lot of cases, we are a sole supplier. Like our speaker line is the speaker line. Everyone loves our speakers. They have a very good dynamic range. You can hear them in a Humvee, and not a sexy product again, but very, very important to the use of the radio and actually be able to communicate to the forces on the ground. So not a huge competition there. I mean, there's a handful of other medical or military amplifier specialists out there, and we kind of all have our little niches. I mean, our niche really is on-man and handheld radio amplification for the most part. We do a little bit of bigger amplification, but kind of a limited competition there. On our battery side of the business, on the cell side, there's a few competitors. On the manganese dioxide side, we've had that lithium technology going back to the 80s with Kodak. It's very, very well established. We still control all the cathode here in Newark, although we do some manganese dioxide assembly in China. We actually ship the cathode to China for that from here. We do not let that recipe out. Anyone can go buy metallic lithium. The cathode on the primary business, the non-rechargeable business, is really where all the special sauce is, per se. And we keep that close to our vest, and we do a variety of treatments and other things here. That process is pretty special to us. Hold on. The other side of that, and on the pack assembly side, it's been interesting. There's some larger players out there, the Inventuses of the world. Totex out on the West Coast is a competitor in that process. There's a couple others that you can find, I'm sure, but a lot of the customers really don't want to have multiple. It sounds almost counterintuitive. They don't really want a lot of vendors. So it's really usually down to one or two vendors, or in a lot of cases, we're single sourced in the products that we're providing because, like I said to begin with, they don't want to go out and audit 2 or 3 facilities. It's a cost to them. They want really good vendors that don't cost them a lot of money, a lot of time, and a lot of effort to make sure that, they have good quality product coming in. And as long as you're delivering, you're in a pretty good position. On the military side of our products, a lot of that is IDIQ based for direct military sales. So that's very lumpy. You would think right now we'd be really busy. We're not. I mean, they're still working down some inventory that we sold a couple years ago, and I expect we will get busy there at some point once some of that stock wears down, but not as busy as we would hope. On the direct military side of our business, where we're selling directly into the OEMs with radio batteries and chargers and cables and accessories, that's very strong. And a lot of that is what's going through FMS, federal spending through, some of our allied countries, the Ukraine, et cetera. That business is really strong and forecasted to be strong probably the next 18 months at least. And that continues to grow. We have a couple really huge partners. I mean, L3 Harris right down the road, it's in our queue, is one of our biggest customers. They're, all of a 35-minute drive away. We have a really good relationship with their engineering team, and, we're in each other's facility probably once a week. So, that's the type of relationships we want and we want to continue with. So it's, there's not I can't really pick one area where there's a ton of direct competition, which, is kind of by design. We're trying to be that niche, supplier that in a really, critical application. And I think we've done a pretty good job of positioning ourselves as such.
And Sam, when you look at the numbers, this is really interesting, and you learn about this when you're seeking acquisitions and all that. So our battery business last year was about $130 million. There's a huge void between, let's say, the $130 million and $25 million. And the smaller companies are trying to do what basically what we've done to diversify, and they're going through the pains of realizing that it's a long road, it's a long process. So naturally they come to us. And we then look to see, is it a market that we're penetrated in? We're interested in the markets that we're not penetrated in yet, and where the real opportunities and the margins lie. So we've been very selective.
So, did I hear that right? That you are kind of considering acquisitions at the moment, or are you really focused on the deleveraging side? I assumed it was the latter, but I just wondered, are you even now, if you see like a good opportunity, would you consider it, or are you really kind of laser focused on the balance sheet at the moment? And
No, we're laser focused on growth. We're laser
Yeah.
focused. If the right opportunity comes around, and Mike and I talk M&A every day.
Every day.
Every day we talk M&A. No waiting when it comes to M&A, because we have our list, and no, those who hesitate are lost when it comes to M&A. We've done a lot in that area. We have a great relationship with our banks. We have an S3 filing out there. But when I say when we talk about deleveraging, it just creates a more dry powder for acquisitions.
Yep.
is there I know you can't kind of give the game away, but are you focused on a particular area, or are you kind of keeping an open mind? Is there like a particular market or geography that you're interested in? I'm just wondering how that looks.
I
Well,
don't
I'll
know.
answer that. The answer is yes. Right,
Yes.
Mike? The answer is yes.
Yeah.
That's about
Generically
as
as
far as
possible,
we'll go.
yes.
Okay.
Because we spent so much time just thinking through and being intellectually honest, and that's probably the best way to put it. What we have, what we don't have, what we are, what we're not, and what is going to make us put us in a position to have the sustained value that you can see. That we want to touch it, we want to be there, we want to do it. We were both here when the stock was at $24 a share, and we liked how that felt. To be honest with you.
Yeah, we sure did. But to just follow on with that, I mean, obviously, in both businesses, we're power related, right? We have power amplification, we have power products, batteries, whatever. We don't expect the world to become less electrified over the next decade or two. So, we're kind of wide open and casting a wide net in a lot of areas where things going forward are going to need not only just batteries and chargers, but connection and transformation from DC to AC and AC to DC and et cetera, et cetera. I mean, so, we're looking at a lot of different directions. But it's all actually got to, it's got to make sense at the end of the day. It's got to fit in our business model, and the gross margins, have to be something that we think, we can get to a reasonable level. We're not going to buy a 6% gross margin business. It's not what we want. It's not who we are, not what we want to be. And we'll leave it at that for now.
And we can't afford to make mistakes, because our acquisitions have done extremely well, very, very well. And that is for two reasons. Number one is the amount of due diligence that we do in an acquisition is, I learned that from day one. It's extraordinary, as it should be. The easy part is signing the papers. When Arthur Anderson 2 decades ago did a study of looking at 700 different international acquisitions, and why 75% of them failed, what they found, and failing means not meeting the valuations that were presented to the board to justify the acquisition. They failed because when the acquisition was done, there was a handoff from the VP of Business Development who went on to the next thing. And the business guys that were handed this acquisition, they were kind of figure out what it was, what they're going to do, and all that stuff. So the head of business development, you got them both on the phone and or both on the meeting here. And to us, the 100-day transition plan, which we do before the papers are signed with the target, is absolutely critical, because once you've completed the acquisition based on everything you've learned, everything you've seen, immediately day one, that goes into action without any delays whatsoever.
Excellent.
Great. Switching gears a little bit, what keeps you two up at night? What are the kind of big risks that you might have on your mind that investors should be aware of?
Well, we file a risk list every year, like every other main company. I mean, obviously the cyber event took us off our feet for a few weeks last year. That was one that is ever present out there, not only with us, but our customers and our suppliers. I mean, we're hyper aware of that now. If it happened to us, it could happen to one of our main customers, and they could be shut down for 3 or 4 weeks or 5 weeks. And, that would disrupt our business temporarily, obviously. Supply chain is still, a little bit dicey. There's some things and some consolidation and other things going on there that, you always got to be a little bit concerned on. I'm always hyper focused on quality, 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 quality. We cannot afford a quality issue or a safety issue. There's all kinds of events in the news with, things going badly. And in a lot of cases, it's batteries that aren't certified properly or, aren't necessarily through all the safety certs, or aren't being used properly, or someone's opened them and did something they shouldn't. There's bad things going on there, and there's some fallout, that directly ripples over to our business with that as well. It may not be our product, but we still get the questions. So we still have to deal with it, and our insurance goes up because of it and everything else. I mean, so there's those peripherals. I mean, the other thing is, just making sure that we have the adequate training and the adequate people in place at all of our facilities to really service our customers as well as we need to, and continue to provide those high quality products. That's been a background thing that we don't really talk around as much as we probably should, but having the highest quality manufacturing staff is also super important in delivering a high quality product. And that doesn't come by just walking somebody in the door and, sitting them in a seat. It takes training, it takes investment, and a lot of time to make sure that you have those people and resources in place. So all of those things kind of keep us awake at night. I think we have a really good team in place. So I think I sleep a little bit better now than I did a year and a half ago when I took the seat, because I know we have people that are competent in charge of some of the really key initiatives that we have going on. And, to steal, our CEO, Scott Nitty's comment to me, you can't manage the business with ghosts. And we had some ghosts in really key positions that weren't getting addressed, and we needed to make sure that we had the people and resources to do it. Bill?
Yeah, I agree with everything that Mike said. And, there's two things, and one is kind of off the wall, but one, it's real. The other, I'll start with that, is that no matter how prepared you are and no matter what you do and all that, something's going to happen. And you just have to be ready to take that on. And if that keeps you up at night, that means that you don't have the right team or the right resources in place. So that's a given. The other thing that kind of keeps me up is just the excitement. It's like doing what you love and building something. And, I mean, it's for us, it's simple because our insiders, 6 of us, primarily our chairman, we own 40% of the company. So we're We are we're totally aligned with our shareholders. We all want the same thing. And someday we all want to monetize. And again, we're not getting any younger, and we want to do it smart. We want to do it, just want to be smart every step of the way through. But there's always going to be something we're going to miss, and that's why we're building this team of experts on a global basis, or beginning to realize the extent of the resources that we have, so we use those in the smartest way possible.
Great.
Yeah.
It's a great answer. Thank you very much. I just want to give everyone else just maybe one more chance if there's one more question from the audience. Otherwise, I've got one last one to finish out. But anyone else holding on to any questions, go ahead. All right, then I will ask the last one, which is, when you look kind of longer term, where would you love to see your company in, say, 5 years' time? Obviously, I know you don't give guidance per se, but if there's any kind of flavor you could give us there, that'd be great.
Well, we don't give guidance, but we have a 3 to 5 year strat plan that we refresh every single year, and looking out over the 3 to 5 year horizon. I mean, our goal this last year was to see a $500 million revenue number. It's an internal goal, but just in general, and you can't do that just all organically, obviously. So back to the M&A question. Yeah, we're always looking at M&A, and you'd probably have to you could very quickly go through how you might go about that, and you've got probably 2 or 3 things you'd have to do on the M&A side over that time horizon, and you'd have to have some projects actually hit in a big way. But that's kind of our internal goal, and I think if we accomplish that, we'll be really happy.
And that we share that. That's on the goal sheet that Mike held up a little while ago.
Right up here in the corner. 500 million.
That makes me smile.
Well, I'll wrap up and just thank you both tremendously for giving us the time for everyone to ask questions, or mostly just me and Chris to ask questions. But we're big fans of you too, and the rest of the company, and we love what you're doing. I mean, Q1, I'd say you guys killed it, and we know that kind of we'll have bumps along the way, but I mean the general trajectory is solidly forward. I mean you're growing well, the margins are going well, balance sheet's going well. I just really think the people who haven't yet looked at your company are missing out, and you're kind of criminally undervalued, I think, and hopefully we'll see a change in that over the coming months and coming years. Yeah, but it's been a real pleasure to chat with you both, and thanks for giving us the time.
And then thank you, Sam. And please know, anytime you have a question, or any of you guys have a question, just call me. You have my cell, you have my office number. Just pick up the phone, give me a call.
Will do.
Okay, great.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, folks.
Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone.
Neither Breakout Investors nor any of its affiliates makes any representation or warranty, express or implied, as the accuracy or completeness of the statements or any information presented by this podcast, and any liability, including in respect to direct, indirect, or consequential loss or damage, therefore is expressly disclaimed. The views on this podcast expressed are those of the speaker and not Breakout Investors. No one on this podcast is an investment advisor, and no one is providing investment advice. Before investing in any company stock, you must do your own research. Thank you for listening.